Hey everybody. Welcome to Reading the Bible to Cats. I think we're recording. Yeah. I'm going to move over to the Bibles. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we are on Judges chapter 17, and I'm looking first before we pounce on Judges chapter 17, or Shof'tim 17. I guess that's how you pronounce it in Hebrew. I wanted to read this study note from the Archaeological Study Bible on Judges chapter 16 about Samson and or Shemshon and the temple of Dagon. I don't know if I read that before, but I don't think I did. So I'll read that about Judges 16. Only limited excavation has been undertaken at Gaza. And of course, a side note, this Bible was published in, I think it was 2005. So obviously, it would be extremely, um, you know, inappropriate these days to do anything there. But okay, let me go on. Only limited excavation has been undertaken at Gaza, so we have little idea of what the city of Samson's day was like. However, grinding houses, Judges 16, verse 21, and a temple, verses 23 through 30, similar to those referred to in Judges 16, have been unearthed at other sites. Grinding houses, known both from ancient texts and excavated examples, were places where prisoners would grind grain for their masters. The tools were simple: hand grinding stones, a loaf shaped upper stone, and a larger, slightly concave lower stone called a saddle quern. Samson spent his days kneeling in front of a quern, pushing an upper stone back and forth, grinding grain into meal. Samson's greatest feat was the destruction of the temple of Dagon. The only definite Philistine temples found to date are those at Tel Kasil on the outskirts of modern Tel Aviv. 3 temples, each larger than the previous, were built on the same spot over a period of 150 years. The latest, from the 11th century BC, approximately the time of Samson, measured 26 feet by 48 feet. 2 pillars supported the roof, just as the temple of Dagon described in Judges 16. They were made of cedar wood, approximately 1 foot in diameter, and rested on stone bases set in the floor. It would have been possible to dislodge the center pillar in the Tel Kasil temple, since it was held in place on the stone base only by the weight of the roof. A large man with his arms extended could have spanned the 7-foot distance between the 2 pillars. Also, it is conceivable that the pillars of Dagon's temple were closer together than those of the Tel Kasil temple. Okay. Pardon me. That was that study note. Oh, there's another study note on Judges 17, but let's read Judges 17 first and then look at that study note. I had guessed moved closer to the Bible. Okay, so let's read Judges chapter 17, or Shof'tim 17. I don't know how to pronounce that. If anyone knows Hebrew, you can tell me if it's Shof'tim or Shof'tim or something else in the Hebrew. Okay, so I'm going to read from the beautiful, the Complete Jewish Study Bible, which Robin sent. So it'll have the Hebrew words. Okay. There was a man from the hills of Ephraim named Micaiah, which is Micah in the English transliteration, Micah. He said to his mother, "You know the 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from you? You pronounced a curse about it, and you told me about it? Well, the money is with me. I took it." His mother said, "May Adonai bless my son," as he restored the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. Then his mother said, "I solemnly dedicate this money of mine to Adonai in order for my son to make a carved image overlaid with silver. So now I'm giving it back to you." But he returned the money to his mother, and she took 200 pieces of silver and gave them to the metalworker who made a carved image overlaid with silver, which was put in Micaiah's house, or Micah's house. This man, Micah, owned a house of God, so he made a ritual vest and household gods and consecrated one of his sons, who became his Kohen, or priest in the English. At that time, there was no king in Israel. A man simply did whatever he thought was right. There was a young man from Bethlehem in Yehuda, which, let me go to the English and read that. Bethlehem, a young Levite from Bethlehem in Judah, okay, who was a Levi. He had been staying in Bethlehem, but he left there to find another place to live and came to the hills of Ephraim, where eventually he made his way to the house of Micah. Micah asked him, "Where are you coming from?" He answered, "I am a Levi from Bethlehem in Yehuda," or Bethlehem in Judah, "and I'm looking for a place to live." Micah replied, "Stay with me and be a father and Kohen for me," or a priest for me. "I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year in addition to your clothing and food." So the Levi went in and agreed to stay with the man. The young man became like one of his sons. After Micah consecrated the Levi, the young man became his Kohen, or priest, and stayed there in Micah's house. Micah said, "Now I know that Adonai will treat me well because I have a Levi for a Kohen," or I have a Levite for a priest. Okay, everyone, that's the end of Judges chapter 17, Shof'tim 17, and it's unusual, and it's an unusual little vignette, I think. I'll read a study note from this Bible about verse 21. About the phrase, "A man simply did whatever he thought was right." In the third major and final section of the book of Judges, the author records a few episodes representative of this period, revealing the depraved moral and spiritual condition to which the nation had fallen: national and private idolatry, corruption of the priesthood, and the moral degeneracy that led to civil war. Okay, that's from the Complete Jewish Study Bible. Let's see what the Archaeological Study Bible says. The Levite was a priest who could follow his religious practice anywhere. He was hired as a family chaplain and soothsayer. That's interesting. And his presence was considered to be certain to bring, quote unquote, good luck. He evidently functioned with idols and was quite willing to change situations if the transition involved a better salary. See Judges 18, verses 19 through 20. All of this is in direct contrast to the divine commands concerning the priesthood in the Mosaic Law. Okay, this is from the Archaeological Study Bible. I'll keep reading these study notes about verses 4 through 5. The silversmith was a maker of idols. You can see idols and idol making on page 1136. Wooden idols were often plated with precious metals to make them more attractive. See Isaiah chapter 2, verse 20, Isaiah 30, verse 22, and Isaiah 40, verse 19. The idols here were household gods that were used for divining. Ezekiel 21, verse 21, Zechariah 10, verse 2. Okay, that's interesting. That's from the Archaeological Study Bible. And I'm going to look at my NIV First Century Study Bible and see the notes there about verse 1. Micah's idols. This passage describes the first cycle of events in the epilogue. It blah blah blah. It illustrates corruption in Israelite worship by telling of Micah's establishment of a local place of worship in Ephraim, added by a Levite claiming descent from Moses. This paganized worship of the Lord was taken over by the tribe of Dan when that tribe abandoned its appointed inheritance and migrated to Israel's northern frontier. About the use of the word father in verse 10. This was a term of respect used also for Elijah. See 2 Kings 2, verse 12, and Elisha, 2 Kings 6, verse 21, 2 Kings 13, verse 14. See Genesis 45, verse 8, and Matthew 23, verse 9. 10 shekels in verse 10. In the light of this remuneration for a year's service, the stated amounts in chapter 16, verse 5 and chapter 17, verse 2 take on special significance. The offer of wages, clothing, and food was more than this Levite could resist. Verse 11. Clearly, material concerns were at the root of his decision because later he accepted an even more attractive offer in chapter 18, verses 19 through 20. Okay, well, there you have it. A story of corruption in the priesthood, and I guess the Levite, the priest, was a kind of an opportunist, and that Micah himself had a lot of idolatry going on. I laugh because it sounds like the way I phrased that was kind of funny. There's a lot of idolatry going on. Okay, let me read from the Archaeological Study Bible, this long study note on Judges 17, tombs in ancient Israel. Judges 17. The most important feature of ancient Israelite burials is reflected in the interment of Samson in the tomb of his father. Other individuals are specified to have been buried in their father's tombs, including Gideon, see Judges 8, verse 32, Asahel, see 2 Samuel chapter 2, verse 32, and Ahithophel, see 2 Samuel chapter 17, verse 23. The first such burial noted in Scripture is that of Abraham, interred in the tomb of Sarah, his wife, later followed by their children and grandchildren. Caves were often used for such tombs. Only the wealthiest could afford a tomb that had been quarried out of rock. The prophet Isaiah condemned the royal steward Shebna for his arrogance in constructing such a burial monument. Isaiah 22, verse 15 through 16. The poor could not afford a rock-hewn tomb and were buried in common graves dug into the soil. Cross-reference 2 Kings 23, verse 6 and Jeremiah 26, verse 23. The graves of the poor have generally not been preserved for archaeologists. Excavations have unearthed many examples of family burials in caves and rock-hewn tombs from the Old Testament period, with instances of more than 100 individuals interred in a single tomb. These tombs consisted of a square chamber or, in more elaborate examples, up to 9 chambers for members of the extended family. Each chamber typically contained 3 waist-high benches that lined the room on every side except the entrance. The deceased were laid out on these benches immediately after death, along with burial gifts, including bowls for food, perfume juglets, oil lamps, weapons, and jewelry. The benches, including ledges to prevent the contents from falling off, and headrests, were frequently carved out of the rock to hold the deceased's head. After the flesh of the corpse had decayed, the bones were collected, along with the gifts, and deposited into a repository hewn beneath one of the burial benches. Thus, the repositories were filled with the bones and objects of generations of the family. This process of burial makes it clear that the biblical phrase, quote, gathered to their fathers, unquote, for example, Judges chapter 2, verse 10, was more than metaphorical. Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, well, that's the end of that study note. I guess it's kind of an appropriate study note for Halloween, because it's Halloween today, which is kind of a creepy holiday that seems to celebrate death and fear, but also candy. Anyway, yeah, I think the Judges chapter 17 was an interesting little vignette, a little peek into this man Micah's life and into this Levite's life, and just summed up in a very short passage. It's like, it makes me think of I don't know, little did Micah know that his life would be summed up in the Bible like that. And the priest, too. You know what I mean? For all of us to read forever. It makes me wonder how my life would be summed up. So, yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a strange story. This man named Micah from the hill country of Ephraim says to his mother, I guess he stole those 1,100 shekels of silver, and then his mom uttered a curse, and then I guess he brings it back if I'm reading this correctly, and then she blesses her son, and then anyway, they have this little back and forth thing, and then ultimately like create an idol out of it, and then this Levite is looking for a place to stay, and suddenly this guy takes them in because I guess he's looking for good luck and good fortune, maybe. I guess he's kind of into shekels, you know what I mean? Into shekels and superstition and idols and good fortune. So he thinks this wandering Levite will bring that, will be like a good luck charm or something. And so he takes him in, and it's kind of this idea that, then God will be good to him, since he now has this Levite in his home, like a little amulet or good luck charm or something. And meanwhile, the priest is like, yeah, I got a place to stay now and some grub, and I've got some wages. But I guess he kind of, was looking for upward mobility, and I don't know. It's strange, the whole thing. But it makes sense, though, that the way has been lost, and, that it appears that the priest doesn't really have integrity and isn't really thinking about his calling, but really about his own needs. And then this guy, Micah, is really just thinking about shekels and good fortune. Let it be a A warning to us all to get our mind off shekels and I don't know, treating God like a genie or something. You know what I mean? Or like Santa Claus. I hope my ramblings make sense. I don't know. I hope you can see something cute on the. Let me walk over there to see what you're seeing on the screen because I stepped away to go to the Bibles. Let me see what you're looking at. Oh, sorry, everybody. You're just seeing a large blob of fur. Aww, but it's cute. Well, let me see. There you go. That's better. Well, let's say a prayer. Lord, thank you for your word. It is interesting, the little vignettes and stories and insights into ancient lives from long ago that have a message for us today in the 21st century. I pray that your word goes out and accomplishes what you would have it accomplish, because we know it does not return void. And I pray for my YouTube friends and everyone listening and watching that you would bless them with your spirit in a special way, Lord, and that you would meet their needs and the prayers of their heart as they, turn their faces towards you and seek you. And I pray, Lord, for the peace of Jerusalem. It's mandated. You call us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, for the peace of Israel, for your people, for your land, for your people in your land to really recognize who it is that has given them the land, you, and to recognize that it is you who is protecting them from the enemies all around. And, I got a phone call. Uh-oh. Oh. Well, I'll finish my prayer. I don't know if you can hear my phone ringing. Anyway, I pray for the hostages, Lord, for their freedom. The ones who are still with us, please free them, Lord. I pray for any suffering people in Gaza or Lebanon, that you would be their comfort and their light, and that they would turn to you, the God of Israel and the Messiah. And I pray for the Iranian Christians who are really turning to you, Lord, that you give them supernatural strength. And we do pray that you topple that evil regime there in Iran. And we know, Lord, you let us know in advance all these things would happen in your word. You'd let us know. Help us to have insight into your prophetic word and what it all means. And I pray for all the animals that need you, Lord, especially in these war-torn areas. I pray for my country, because we have this election coming up, and I've just been tuning out of it because, like the news, so I don't know what's really happening, and I don't really want to know. But I pray, Lord, for peace, that there wouldn't be any craziness ensuing, and nothing like a civil war or I don't know, craziness and riots and who knows what. Just give us peace and a beautiful, peaceful transition of power when it happens. And I pray all these things in Jesus' name, in Yeshua HaMashiach's name. Amen. All right, everybody. I'm going to go see who called me. Bye.